WNST. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're downloading and using that Royal Farms app for all of your gas purchases. It will wind up saving you some dough, wind up getting you some free Western fries, as well as some chicken. Royal Farms, get that Kona blend in your cup as well. Here's a guy who is local, and we haven't had him on in a while, although I keep bumping into him in various press boxes in places like the Liars Luncheon at Owings Mills later on in the week. He is Dave Ginsburg. He is now, I think, 34 years at the Associated Press. Certainly he's been in Baltimore as long as I've been doing sports radio here, dating back to 1991, 92. Covering everything around here, the good, the bad, the unusual, and then the Orioles as well. Gins, we've seen all this from, before Angelos took over to where we are now. They let kids in free, and people still aren't coming to the ballpark. And they spent $53 million on a pitcher 2 weeks ago. It feels like the times they are changing, but I don't know if they're going to get the outcome they want this year.
Well, I agree. They're at least, to me, at least they're giving it a shot. We'll see what happens. I think it's nice that they got Alex Cobb, the pitcher you're referring to, but I think the real key will be to see what happens around July, whether they start unloading some of the key parts, some of the guys that won't be coming back. But, to me, if you didn't get Cobb and this season's completely flushed, I'm not sure that he's going to make that big of a difference, nor the addition of Michael Saunders is going to make much of a difference. But, I at least see that the white flag has not been waved just yet.
Well, right. I mean, the white flag would have been doing nothing and not getting Cashner or Cobb, which I think many of us sort of thought that that's the way it was going to go. This is not the move of Peter Angelos to be spending $53 million on a 4-year pitcher who had Tommy John surgery less than 2 years ago. It does feel like John's making decisions, Brady's making decisions, that they're doing things differently with the Orioles than they've ever been done here under Peter.
Well, I will say this. I mean, every one of those transactions does have to be cleared by the owner. I mean, you know that. I know that. I think it's just though he is given the green light to things like this. And, and in the light of some of the moves that the Orioles have made, the ones when they've opened their wallets and gotten Ubaldo Jimenez and signed Chris Davis to a 7-year, $161 million contract, it would be certainly, I guess, within their right to be cautious and not offer these big contracts, but they continue to go on forward in the light of some of the ones that have misfired for them, and hoping for the best.
Well, all we heard about was collusion and teams tanking. I'll give it to the Orioles. They're not tanking this year. There's no doubt about that. Now, whatever this methodology is with not signing Scope, not negotiating with Jones, not getting Machado done long-term, bringing Tillman back when I just would not have brought Tillman back, not at real money, not at anything more than sing for your supper based on what I saw last year. It's been a dubious set of moves, but all that being said, the Machado thing's probably the craziest. And I know you and I have been talking for a couple of years about whether they were going to deal him off into the market or sign him. I don't know if they're closer to signing him, but if John is the one spending the money, maybe they will sign him.
That is true. I would say this. I mean, guys like, Harper in Washington, these guys haven't been re-signed yet. I think there's a wait and see, and they want to gauge the market. But I'm at least somewhat, like you, somewhat encouraged that it could happen as opposed to, it's just a matter of July 31st, goodbye Manny Machado. I still have a hope that they will make an effort to keep him. And even if they don't sign him by July 31st, if they do hold on to him, then maybe there's a chance it'll be a Chris Davis thing where they do it during the off season. But, I would also say that there's a chance, and to me, that's good enough because I think a while back, I would just say there was no chance they were going to shell out that kind of money. I would say this also, that the price has lowered in recent years. I mean, certainly this year you saw the free agent market. So I think they'd have a better shot of getting him. They don't have to worry about Scope yet, and Jones certainly is concerned as well.
Dave, I think you might be a year or two older than me. I've been watching the Orioles for almost 50 years now. 100 years of baseball. Pretend I just came down from Mars or from some country where they don't play baseball and explain to me why Chris Davis is batting leadoff. Can you do that?
You know what, Nestor? Absolutely not. I honestly can't. I mean, Buck has his reasons, and I will not pretend to be as smart as Buck Showalter when it comes to the game of baseball. I think it was the idea that if we put him at the top of the order, he'll not swing for the fences, and he's not striking out as much, but he's not getting on base yet either. He still is hitless. So, I don't know. To me, I don't know why you're that against having Tim Beckham on top of the lineup, at least a guy who can run, a Craig Gentry. It's just not working. And as Buck said over the weekend, he's well aware of the fact that this may not work. He's not married to it. And I think that ultimately this thing is going to be blown up because Chris Davis is not a leadoff hitter. He's not that fast. He doesn't have the swing. I just don't get it either, really.
Well, the on-base percentage part of me gets it, but I don't get the contract. I don't get the beer league softball approach that they're now in their fifth year. And on the pitching side of it, the Cashner-Cobb thing, I think they're good enough to be ordinary now, and I have higher expectations for Cobb. I mean, Dave, I went from thinking they were a 72 to 75 win team to thinking they can win 85 games with a healthy Cobb who goes out there and takes the ball, and Cashner, although it better be better than he was on Saturday for sure, but I have higher expectations for the team than I had 3 weeks ago for sure.
Completely agree. And I think the Cashner thing was sort of an aberration. He had given up .089 home runs per 9 innings last year with Texas. And yes, he's playing in a smaller ballpark, but I do believe that that was not what we're going to be seeing from him. And, I'm encouraged. I mean, Cobb is not Cy Young by any stretch, but he is a guy, a solid veteran that you can put on top of the rotation. And if you look at the 5 guys they've got now, and Bundy threw marvelously on opening day, I think the rotation is better than it was a year ago, without question. I mean, you get rid of Wade Miley, you get rid of Ubaldo, and it's a better rotation. Now, you can't afford to get 3 hits a game. You're not going to win no matter how good your pitching is. But, yeah, you know what? 85 is feasible in spite of what happened in the opening series. So, certainly not abandoning ship yet. And I'm somewhat encouraged that they at least went for it during the offseason to try to make this team better.
Look, Cashner and Cobb, they're a box of chocolates to me. I've seen enough of Wright to know that he pretty much stinks. And I've seen enough of Tillman so far to say he's not going to be what he used to be. But Gausman and Bundy are the guys that, every 2-3 days they take the ball, one of them, and I tend to compare one to the other, and I thought Gausman's ceiling might have been a little higher, because of no injury and Bundy coming back from the injury. But it's very apparent that Bundy is an ace kind of guy. Like, I'm a believer in Bundy. Every time he touches the ball every 5th day, I believe something good's going to happen. I'm not there with Gausman, and I don't know that I'm ever going to get there with Gausman from a consistency basis to where he feels like a frontline Messina-esque, the guy, what Tillman was 3 years ago, the guy that's going to take the ball and give you something that's representative every 5th day. We're not there with Gausman.
Well, if this was July, then perhaps we might be saying something different. But, for whatever reason, this guy can't pitch early in the season. It's just, and it's killing the O's because, you can't get a half season out of him. I think in the second half, the past 2 years, he's been very good. He's not the ace guy that I think Bundy is right now, as you point out. But, you just can't afford to have this guy wait for April, May, and June before he starts flinging the ball because by then, the season could be toast. So, yeah, at this point, he was awful over the weekend. Gausman, just awful. And he's got to get better. And he's got to do it soon. We can't wait for him to have his typical second half because it's just going to cost them because this rotation is pretty thin as it is. And, by the way, I love your assessment of Mike Wright. Stinks, And, yeah, I can't argue that one either.
The book is If These Walls Could Talk, Baltimore Orioles stories from the sideline, locker room, and press box. Dave Ginsburg inked that one last year with Rick Dempsey. You can find that out on Amazon. You can find Gins at Ginzy, that's Ginzy, and the number 3. And, of course, you can find his work out at WNST.net on the backside of our website on the AP stat side of things. Last thought for you on the Orioles. I mean, the schedule makers did them no favorites either. And I know they didn't hit the ball. They didn't pitch the ball well over the weekend. Now off to Houston, New York, if it stops snowing there before it's over with at the end of the week. But this is a ball buster month of April, and they need to make sure that they're not strutting one of those 6-14s out of here 2 weeks from now, right?
Very good point, Nestor. I mean, last year they got off to a very good start. They were in first place in May. But, man, you look at this schedule here, and Minnesota playoff team, Houston playoff team, Yankees playoff team, 3 at home against Toronto. Then you go with Boston at Detroit, then Cleveland. I mean, that's brutal. You don't have any Oaklands in there. This is tough, and they're going to have to stay above water to make it interesting because the AL East is not a slouch division by any stretch. So, yeah, no favors done for them in April. It gets a little better in May when they've got a lot of home games and KC comes in, but man, they've got to survive this month to make it to make May a little bit more interesting than it could be.
Look, Dave, there's been a million Daves that have pitched or played for the Orioles. There have been Ginsburgs in and around the area. I know some other Ginsburgs, maybe relatives of yours as well. There haven't been any Nestors to wear an Oriole uniform, and I got to tell you, on Saturday night, putting Jim Palmer on and hearing Jim Palmer just keep saying Nestor. It's been a long time coming. It's about time. We thought all Nestors were banned from the Orioles, but Nestor Cortez stepping up here. Is he gonna stick around? I mean, these Rule 5 things, I don't. All due respect to Nestor Cortez, because I do think it's kitschy and awesome that he's on the team, but I don't understand their fascination with this Rule 5 thing, the way they played this thing the last decade.
I do hear you, and they did get rid of one of their Rule 5s, Jose Mesa Jr. They sent him back to the Yankees recently. But you know what? I think it's a nothing to lose. The roster of 25 is not as tight as you think. And if these guys turn out to be something, and they've had a few, Todd McFarland, I believe, was a Rule 5. They've had some pretty decent
Jay Gibbons back in the day, right? He was the original one, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, it's a crapshoot. And, sometimes I wouldn't be surprised if Nestor Cortez Jr. develops some form of injury that takes him off the roster when that necessity comes about. But, I say this, you're not making any, you don't lose any player, you don't lose any money unless you send them back and it's chump change. So I say it's a nothing to lose. And, their 2 Rule 5s were not bad over the weekend. So let's see what develops. And that's how you get some young talent without really having to trade away quality veterans. So I can see the fascination because it's basically a nothing to lose type of thing. Especially, this is not a team that's like the Yankees that that expects to fully win the East and is a contender. Let's see what you got, and it's a chance to build for the future without costing you really anything.
Guys named Dave and John and Joe and Peter and Paul, they all got to go to Ocean City and see their name on a keychain, on a cup, on something. Guys named Nestor, we're rare. So when a guy named Nestor can make the big leagues, I'm going to support that guy fully, even if he is left-handed, a little quirky. Dave Ginsburg joining us here from the Associated Press. All right, let's get to the football side. I was at the owners' meetings last week. This has been a very subdued offseason all the way around, and I said this earlier to Luke. Nobody's got a sense of humor around the Ravens right now, do they? Right? Like, this is serious, all-down business with Harbaugh being on the hot seat, Flacco being on the hot seat, Bisciotti looking a little antsy about ownership at this point, Eric coming in for Ozzie, the wide receiver side of this thing. This is a real, do or die, dare I say, kind of season in a lot of ways for this franchise, including selling tickets and having empty seats last year, if that were to continue this year.
Well, I'll say this. Now, I think they're always going to sell the tickets. Now, you can protest and not go because they took a knee, but I don't know that they're going to have a problem selling tickets because football's king here. I mean, people love the O's, but they really do love their NFL football. And it's not like the Ravens have tanked. Yes, they have missed the playoffs 3 straight years, but they've at least given them something to cheer for. At 9-7, they just missed out last year. You're right, though. Serious, big-time season for the team. Not necessarily in terms of fan interest. I think that'll be there if they remain pretty competitive, which they are. But, it's no one's going to be settling for not making the playoffs. So it doesn't matter if you lose in the first or second round, even though the players say we're in it to win it. But they got to get in to make it, to at least, restore the confidence that the fan base has in this team. Just because there are a lot of things out there. Yes, this is Ozzy's last draft. Flacco come under fire, and they contend that he's the man, and I don't have a problem with him, but they do have to get him some receivers, and if they do, then it's up to him to prove that he is the man, because we were talking about Chris Davis's contract. He got a heck of a one as well, so it's time for him to start paying back on it.
I don't know how you could do better than go get a guy that caught 80 balls 2 years ago and 80 balls 3 years ago and had a down season last year. In the case of Crabtree, he's a legitimate NFL receiver, right? He's not some fringe guy or Macklin being thrown off the side of a roster from the way I feel about him anyway.
I completely agree with you. That was a great acquisition. And, they got rid of the Redskin, I guess it was Grant, that they didn't want. And they did better for it. But, Crabtree's he's almost like an Anquan Bolden to me, a guy who's going to give you 80 catches, and he's going to go over the middle, but they still need the deep threat. And that's something they haven't filled in yet, because I'm not really trusting Brashad Perryman to be that deep threat this year.
I don't think there's anything they're going to do on draft weekend or from a pickup standpoint that's going to look all sexy before September. It's not what you see is what you're going to get. There's going to be more pieces and different pieces here. But I don't know that there's anything they're going to do other than go out and actually do it on the field in September that's going to give us any level of confidence between now and then.
Well, that's true. I mean, you can talk about the drafts and everything. If they're drafting one, then you're going to get a guy that's going to be someone it's going to create a buzz. If you're getting someone later, mid-rounds, as they are, it's not going to be as interesting. It could be a decent wide receiver, could be a quality pass rusher, or even an offensive tackle. But, it's not going to be the big buzz around Baltimore about how this guy's going to do. But I think generally, as you say, that there is a curiosity as to how this team is going to do, given the fact that for the past 3 years we haven't seen a playoff game.
Capitals are going to win the Stanley Cup this year, right? Because no one's expecting it.
Well, so that was what they were talking about on the when they beat the Penguins the other day. No one's expecting it, and who knows? That someone did have a sign of Ovechkin, 1,000 games, 0 cups. I feel bad for the guy because, he is a quality player, and really they haven't gone farther than they haven't gone far. Period. With him as part of the team, but yeah, you know what? I like the way they're playing. I'm not really sure about what's going to happen at goaltender because they've got Grubauer seems to have taken over. But
boy, that's a tough spot for Trotz, right? We had him out last Thursday night, and I said to Ed Frankovic, we didn't really pin him down on anything. Not that there's any pinning down to do, but boy, that's a tough spot when a coach has 2 goalies and you're literally throwing darts as to who to go with, right? I mean, they say when you have 2, you have none. I don't believe that's the case here, but it is a tough decision.
It is, but last year I just think that Holtby was overplayed. By the time it got to the postseason, he was the man. Period. And then if there's a problem in the beginning of a series, I don't think they'd have any problem going to the other guy. And in last year was not the case. I mean, I think he put way too much pressure on Holtby and used him way too often. So by the time the playoffs came around, it was one guy and that's it. I think he can go either way now with confidence. So I don't know. I think it's better to have 2 than to have 1 and 2A as opposed to I think I like what they've got going now. Both of these guys are pretty good, and with Holtby struggling, I'm glad that Grubauer has picked up the pace.
He is Ginsy3 out on Twitter and at the Associated Press, as well as at WNST.net. You can find him out on Twitter anytime and pretty much anywhere the Orioles or the Ravens or sometimes the Caps, the Terps, Navy, all sorts of things out there covered. There's only one of him, but sometimes it feels like there's 3 or 4. And I'm sure you're taking a little respite here, getting the Orioles back here. You'll be out at Oriole Park at Camden Yards a lot of nights with Luke. Dave, always good to visit with you, man. Good luck. And how's the book selling? I know, Father's Day coming up. I give a plug out for anybody that's an Oriole fan. It's always great to give a sports book for Father's Day. I'm warning people.
Yeah, there are not many Orioles books out there right now. I think that anyone who's followed the O's, I think what I loved about it was Dempsey who wrote the book really with me, takes it all the way back to the glory years of the O's when he was the catcher, and he takes it right up to now, his assessment of the team where it stands today. So, if you're an O's fan, I think you'd like it.
I'm sure you will. Dave, appreciate the time, man, as always. Hope to see you at a Capitals playoff game in June.
Thanks for having me, Nestor.
You got it, Dave Ginsburg. We'll see him at the Liars Luncheon later on in the week. No one covering the Ravens and the Orioles better or longer than Dave Ginsburg. You can find him out at Ginsy3 on Twitter as well as in the Associated Press. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Want to give a shout out to Pizza John's and our friends there. My mom's favorite pizza, my wife's favorite pizza. I love the pizza. I love the cheesesteaks down there as well. Last time I got to get a meatball sub. It's been a little while since I've had a meatball sub at Pizza John's. They've been doing it for 50 years. They got the little ice cream bar there now. You can get a beer, which is one of the reasons my mom loved it so much, was the beer and the pizza. And they'll even put anchovies on it to honor my mom if you ask them. Don't ask them. God, please don't eat anchovies. Pizza John's down on Back River Neck Road in Essex. Stop by. It's been about 3 weeks since I've had a slice of pizza from Pizza John's. Going to have to change that this week. Get down to Essex. Got to tell you about our friends at Cole Roofing. We all felt that March wind blowing in. If it did some damage up on your commercial roof, you need our friends at Cole Roofing. Pfister Energy. You could learn more out at coleroofing.com. We'll have Bill on the show a little later on in the week talking some sports with us as well. The buyatoyota.com audio vault is there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We're everywhere you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.